Discover the incredible truth, what 12,000 women experienced in life-changing medieval childbirth. Sarah Thompson felt a shiver run down her spine as she read the title of the dusty manuscript she stumbled upon in the Maplewood Library archives. It promised stories of courage, struggle, and resilience, everything she yearned for in her own life. As a single mother raising her 10-year-old son, Jake, in a town where tradition clashed with her reality, she often felt like a ghost in her own skin. The grainy pages hinted at a world of pain and triumph that echoed through centuries, and Sarah's heart raced with a forgotten hope. Every day, the streets of Maplewood welcomed Sarah with familiar sights, colorful storefronts, a bustling cafe, and, of course, the grand old library. In those walls, history was alive. Yet Sarah's presence often felt muted, overshadowed by the expectations looming from her community and her estranged mother, Evelyn, whose disapproval pierced deeper than any quarrel. The old stones of the buildings whispered stories of their own struggles, and each step felt like a reminder of her battles: the looming debts, the pitiful wages from her waitress job, and an uneven relationship with her mother that hung like a heavy weight within her. Suddenly, the manuscript was not just words on a page but a lifeline. As Sarah delved into the tales of those 12,000 women who braved the pains of medieval childbirth, their collective courage fueled her spirit. Each woman's saga resonated with her struggles against society's unyielding demands and her pursuit of connection not only with Jake but also within her own fractured family. It ignited her idea for the upcoming Maplewood Festival, a theatrical production that would portray those stirring stories, blending the past with the struggles of today's mothers. But as she shared her vision with the townsfolk, the laughter turned to skepticism. No time for heavy stories, they said, fretting over profit margins. People want a fun festival. With Jake's eyes shining bright at her side, those dismissive remarks stung deeply. The idea of honoring history with emotional depth was met with raised brows and murmurs of "not practical." Sarah fought to fight against the tide, but doubt took hold. Would her community embrace this vision, or would they silence the voices she sought to bring to life? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, with the festival date now looming, the tension twisted tighter in Sarah's chest. It was when she finally faced her mother, her voice shaking with vulnerability, that the true impact of her fears broke through. "I just want to be seen, Mom," she confessed. Evelyn's cold responses only deepened the fracture, reminding Sarah of how their past echoed even louder than the voices of the resilient women she'd come to admire. In that moment of despair, Sarah felt an awakening. As she stood before the town council, heart racing and voice quaking, she poured everything into her speech. What do we value? Are we nothing more than dollars and cents? Can't we recognize our strength through stories of survival? Each word broke through the silence, causing ripples in the crowd. As the council members exchanged skeptical glances, Sarah struggled against frustration and fear. And then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Evelyn's number flashed on the screen. A second chance. Would she answer and seek that connection, or would she stay lost in her battle for approval? Sarah paused, her heart aching as she faced an uncertain future, woven with whispers of the past. And the hope for change. The buzz of the phone jolted Sarah from her thoughts, the screen lighting up her face with a glow that felt simultaneously inviting and painful. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the answer button. Would it be another conversation filled with the bitterness and disappointment that had become their routine? Or could it be the beginning of a new understanding? Jake, sensing his mother's turmoil, glanced up from his comic book. "Mom, are you okay?" His innocent gaze cut through her fog of uncertainty. Looking into those wide, trusting eyes, she realized the importance of making a choice. Taking a deep breath, she answered the call, her heart pounding. "Hello." The word came out steadier than she expected. Sarah, Evelyn's voice was clipped but laced with an underlying softness that caught Sarah off guard. I heard about your plans for the festival. The lack of reaction was almost deafening. Sarah felt all the walls she had built push back, threatening to collapse all at once. Yes, it's an important project. Important how? Evelyn interjected. You want to tell stories of women who suffered? No, Mom, Sarah replied, her voice steadying. I want to tell stories of resilience, of women who fought through pain and emerged stronger. It's about connection, about breaking through the silence. There was a silence on the other end of the line, thick and suffocating. Sarah waited, the seconds dragging on, unsure if she had said too much or just enough. I don't know if that's what people want to hear, Evelyn finally said. It's uncomfortable. They want treats, festivities, laughter. And those things are important too, but don't we need to acknowledge our history? Our struggles? Her heart raced, the words flowing like they had been waiting to break free. If we don't share these stories, how will we ever find common ground? I worry, her mother admitted, and Sarah could hear the weariness in Evelyn's voice. You and Jake. Your lives aren't easy. Maybe it's best to just focus on what makes people happy. Is that really what you think? That a joyful facade is enough? It's easier to ignore the difficult parts. But what if telling these stories could help? What if it could change lives? Another silence, this one weighted with contemplation. Sarah could almost hear the gears moving in her mother's mind, wrestling with doubts and fears and unspoken love. She wanted to leap through the phone and pull her mother closer, to break down the barriers they both struggled to navigate. Promise me you'll be careful with this, Evelyn finally said, her voice softening ever so slightly, as if a crack had opened in the wall they both hid behind. I promise, Sarah breathed, relief washing over her. I just need you to believe in me. I'll think about it, was all Evelyn offered, but it was enough. The line went dead, the connection severed but not lost, stirring something deep in the mother's heart. With new determination, Sarah returned to the town hall, ready to revisit the council with renewed fervor. She knew their resistance wouldn't crumble easily, but as she stood before the gathering again, she felt emboldened. The pages of the manuscript were still alive in her mind, brave women's voices rising within her. Ladies and gentlemen, what if we all shared our stories today? What if we united to show what it means to be a mother, to face hardship with courage? Wouldn't that be a festival worth celebrating? The murmurs began, some nodding, others shifting uneasily. Just then, a hand shot up at the back of the room, a familiar face, one she didn't expect. Was it her mother, taking an unexpected step towards understanding, and in that moment, Sarah knew she was ready to fight for not only her vision but for all the voices that needed to be heard. But would her community be willing to join her on this journey, or would they remain bound by their fears? Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. A reckoning was arriving. Would Sarah seize the moment, or would old wounds keep her from breaking free? The room fell quiet, an electric pulse of anticipation hanging in the air. Sarah's heart raced, a wild rhythm echoing in her ears as she squinted into the shadows at the back of the hall. Was it really her mother? She hadn't meant to send the waves of uncertainty crashing against their frail bridge of understanding. It had always felt like they were just a heartbeat away from something profound, yet so often, they danced around it, afraid to dive in. Mom. Sarah called out, her voice tremulous but hopeful, standing as a bridge between the past and the uncertain future. Evelyn's hand lowered hesitantly, and murmurs rippled through the gathering. Faces that had once looked skeptical now shifted into expressions of curiosity. Were they ready to break free from their comfort zones? Evelyn stepped into the light, her face soft and worn. I want to hear what everyone has to say. Her voice wavered, a fragile declaration of support that sent a rush of warmth through Sarah, igniting her courage. See. Sarah turned to face the council members, trying to harness the moment. My mother believes in this vision. We all have a story. Sharing it can change lives. A tremor of excitement fluttered through the room like the start of a spark in dry leaves. Encouraged, she began to express the foundation of her project. Imagine women reclaiming their identities through their stories, sharing their struggles in motherhood and the strength that comes from within. We would make a space where those voices could finally be heard, where our community could unite in empathy and understanding. Jake watched from the front row, his eyes bright with pride. He had always looked to his mother as a hero, but with this new light breaking through the murky shadows of doubt, he began to believe she could soar even higher. Will the council back this idea? Someone called out, a voice filled with skepticism. Sarah's gaze darted to the faces in the room, the tension palpable. This isn't just my project, she implored, her passion igniting like flames in a hearth. It is ours. If we don't take this chance, if we keep avoiding the hard conversations, we risk losing the connections that forge our community. We've all experienced pain. We can all relate. Our histories can bond us if we let them. The crowd stirred, a mixture of excitement, fear, and genuine curiosity swirling in the air. Could they really unite? Was it possible to break through the walls of silence they had constructed over the years? Evelyn stood there, silent yet supportive, her eyes glistening with unspoken questions. Would she stand fully behind Sarah when the true challenge emerged? Just then, the mayor cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses as he caught everyone's attention. I believe every story holds value. But how do we move forward? Sarah felt the weight of that question. We build a festival, a space for dialogues, laughter, tears, and everything in between. But we need your help, your voices, and your stories. We must rise together. It starts now. The murmurings grew louder, and excitement sparked through the crowd like the first rays of dawn breaking through the night. Sarah saw hope flickering but could still sense the apprehension, the feeling that perhaps this reality was too daunting to fathom. Suddenly, a voice rose from the back, breaking through the noise. I want to share my story. I'm ready to stand and be counted. It was a woman, older and wise, eyes steel gray yet shimmering with a lifetime of experience. The room fell silent as everyone turned to hear her truth. In that moment, Sarah felt a shift. There was no going back now. But with courage comes vulnerability, and the crowd's growing eagerness began to feel like an avalanche poised to crash. Would they be able to sustain the momentum? Or would fear and doubt creep in once more, stifling these fledgling voices before they ever took flight? The older woman took a deep breath, the silence pressing in around her like a heavy fog. Her voice, though aged and shaky, resonated with a quiet strength that captivated everyone. I'm Annie, she began, her hands clasping tightly in front of her. And I've carried my stories for years, burying them under weighty layers of shame. But I see a chance here, this moment, to finally lighten the load. As she spoke, Sarah felt the air shift again. Anecdote after anecdote spilled forth from Annie's lips, pulling the crowd deeper into a web of shared humanity. She recounted days filled with laughter and joy, but also sorrow and helplessness, weaving each thread of her past into a tapestry of experience that everyone could see themselves within. The gravity of Annie's words drew others forward, like moths to a flame. One by one, women rose to share their own stories, each voice adding another layer of richness to the tapestry Sarah was trying to weave for her community. There was a young mother who spoke of sleepless nights battling postpartum depression, a grandmother recalling the struggles of losing a child too soon, and a young girl who bravely shared her journey of becoming comfortable in a world that often felt cruel. The council members leaned in, exchanging glances of approval and surprise. It was as if the barriers that had held them back were slowly crumbling, replaced by the warmth of vulnerability and connection. Sarah could hardly believe her eyes. She watched as their collective heart began to beat as one, powerful and raw. Yet amidst the growing acceptance, a shadow flickered behind Evelyn, reminding Sarah of the nuances still lurking beneath the surface. She saw her mother shift uneasily, the faint furrow in her brow igniting a spark of fear in Sarah's chest. Would Evelyn speak up? Would she join the chorus of voices celebrating the honesty, or would fear silence her again? Seconds stretched into minutes as the stories flowed. Each woman found a stranger turned friend, and laughter burst through the pane like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. But the positive energy couldn't repress the gnawing worry that someone would slip and fall back into the dark abyss of doubt and fear, a risk that was far too real. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the energy in the room ebbed slightly, the waves of emotional candor retreating for a moment. Sarah's voice broke through the lull, filled with gentle urgency. Look at the power of these stories. What if we could give this crowd what everyone here desperately needs, a chance to heal together? But just then, a voice cut through her optimistic declaration, cold and cutting. What if sharing these stories only opens old wounds? It was a man in the back, his skepticism slicing through the warmth like an unexpected chill. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah felt the shift abruptly. Would the tides that had just begun to favor her vision now turn against it? Annie shot a fierce look back at the man. Old wounds? She countered, her voice strong and unwavering. Maybe it's time to finally bandage them properly, rather than hiding them away like shameful secrets. Each birth was painful yet vital. Shouldn't we honor that, instead of letting fear continue to paralyze us? The room held its breath, teetering on the edge of revelation. As their eyes searched Sarah for reassurance, she could feel the stakes rising. Would they push through the discomfort and fully embrace what lay ahead? Her heart beat hard against her rib cage, a steady drum of determination. Together we can create a space for discussion, healing, and understanding. But we need everyone here to believe we're worth it to take that risk. The question hung in the air, like a delicate thread woven into the fabric of their community. Would they take that risk? And what revelations awaited them in the stories still unspoken? Just when the silence felt unbearable, Evelyn's voice rose above the murmur. I think she hesitated, her hands fidgeting in her lap. The tension pulled at Sarah's gut, a weighty ache demanding attention. I think sharing our stories is scary, but we've all been hurt. If we want to heal, we have to face the pain together. A wave of surprise swept through the room, but then, warmth blossomed in the faces around them. Evelyn's vulnerability seemed to disarm the skepticism that lingered like a stubborn shadow. Encouraged, she continued, I remember when I lost my sister. It felt like my heart had shattered, and I didn't want anyone to see how broken I was. I thought if I just smiled, I could carry the burden alone. The moment hung thick with recognition. Many in the crowd nodded, their eyes glistening with empathy. Sarah felt a rush of pride for her mother. Maybe this was the breakthrough they all needed. See? Annie's voice resonated again, softer now but filled with encouragement. You're braver than you think, Evelyn. Let that heart of yours beat loud. It's your story too. You're not alone anymore. Evelyn's cheeks flushed with relief but also a spark of newfound courage. My sister loved the ocean. She used to say it's where life begins and ends. When she passed, I felt like I was drowning, but now, sharing feels like coming back to the shore. A small smile broke through her uncertainty, and Sarah felt her heart leap. You're doing it. A voice called out, drawing another round of applause from the audience. Laughter, tears, and even some laughter resonated through the room as women leaned into their shared experiences. Each story wove tighter the bond that was forming. One woman in the front, a stranger but somehow familiar, took a deep breath. I didn't think I could speak up, but I wanted to add my voice, she said. I moved here last year, seeking a new life. I left behind everything I knew. It's been so hard to find connection. But maybe, she paused, glancing around nervously, maybe this is how I find my place. A ripple of support surged from the crowd. You are here now. Someone shouted. You belong. Recognizing the power in their collective stories summoned a warmth that wrapped around them like an embrace. Sarah glanced around and saw tears and laughter mingling. Hope hung in the air. This was working. They were creating something transformative together, yet as she felt the tide of connection rise, another fear gripped her. What if unforeseen consequences came crashing down on this delicate moment? Sharing was liberating, but what about the scars still hidden beneath the surface? The man who had initially spoken up shifted again, his face twisted with uncertainty. But how do we know we can trust each other? What if someone exploits our pain? His voice, though quieter now, still broke the spell of unity. Annie jumped in once more, her voice steady. We are here to create trust, to forge a bond of understanding. Sharing isn't about exploiting, it's about healing. If we can't trust each other, how can we move forward? Suddenly, the atmosphere crackled with determination, as the crowd rallied around the notion of trust. We'll help each other. Someone shouted. No one will walk this path alone. Sarah's heart sang at the solidarity that filled the room. But her mind raced with possibilities. What would happen when the stories started revealing deeper, darker truths? Would the community be able to withstand it? As Annie continued to guide the discussion, Sarah felt the urge to share too. There was so much she had locked away, and in this moment of transparency, her own truth began to bubble to the surface. She inhaled deeply. Would she be brave enough? The moment of truth had almost arrived, but first, they had to weather the storm of private pain that could come crashing in. Would they welcome it? Or would the walls they built come crashing down instead? Sarah's heart raced. She could feel the weight of everyone's attention shifting towards her, an energy that pulsed in the air. It was both thrilling and terrifying. But there was something about this room, this group of women, that felt different. Each smile, every nod of understanding, wrapped around her like a soothing blanket, pushing her to step out from the shadows. Taking a slow breath, she opened her mouth, but words fled. Laughter danced nearby, sparked by a story an older woman shared about her wild youth, igniting a spark of joy that spread through the crowd. But underneath her hesitation, Sarah felt a pool of raw emotions simmering. I think I'm ready," she stammered finally. Silence enveloped the room as heads turned, eyes wide with anticipation. "Go ahead, sweetheart," Evelyn encouraged, her warm eyes urging her on. The room felt like a safe harbor, a lighthouse guiding her where once she feared to wander. "Well, I've carried my story for a long time," Sarah began, her voice steadying. "Growing up, I always felt invisible, like I was just a shadow. I often thought that if I just did what was expected, no one would see how lost I was." A wave of recognition washed over the women once more, and she noticed sympathetic nods echoing her sentiments. "After my parents divorced, it felt like my entire world shattered. I lost my sense of home. My mom moved us to a new city, and everything changed: friends, schools, even who I thought I was." Her throat tightened, but she pressed on, reminding herself of the warmth surrounding her. "I wish I had the courage to speak up then. I wanted to scream that it wasn't my fault, but I stayed silent all those years. I built walls. I thought that might keep me safe. Walls can keep out the hurt, but they also keep out connection," a middle-aged woman said gently, her voice holding an understanding that resonated deeply. Sarah nodded, the truth echoing in her mind like a bell tolling with clarity. "Exactly. It wasn't until I reached adulthood that I realized being vulnerable was the bravest thing I could do. I would have rather lived in my truth than stay hidden." As she spoke, she watched as the crowd leaned in closer, the silence brimming with an eagerness to hear every word. But then doubt crept back in like a thief in the night. What if her truth felt too heavy? What if the burden she carried couldn't join with theirs? She felt the weight shift as the man who had voiced concerns earlier, his brow furrowed, glanced at her. "You're so brave. But how do we actually heal from all this?" The question loomed like a thundercloud, threatening to overshadow the moment. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. "I think we heal by allowing ourselves to feel. We let our pain show, but we don't let it consume us. We share it, lean into it together." Moments of realization sparkled in the room as more women shifted, eager to share in their journey's pain, failure, and strength linked together like strands in a tight-knit rope. A hand shot up from a corner. "What if we could create a ritual? A way to honor these stories?" The woman said, her voice rising with excitement. The idea hung in the air, electric, stirring feelings of possibility. Sarah felt her heart soar. Rituals were more than just words, they could be the catalyst that united them through their shared experiences, a way to reclaim their narrative. But as the discussion flourished, Sarah's heart thudded like a drum in the chest of a soldier before battle. Who would take the first leap forward? What dark truths might be waiting behind those walls each one had built? Could they navigate this messy, beautiful journey together without losing each other on the way? As excitement swirled, a new thread of uncertainty unspooled within Sarah. The laughter in the room faded, replaced by a palpable hush as the idea of the ritual settled heavily in the air. Eyes darted among the women, each face alive with emotion, hope, curiosity, and a flicker of fear. Sarah felt that same energy spark within her, igniting a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Maybe we could write down our stories, someone suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. Words that capture our pain and triumph. Then we could share them here, together. The thought resonated deeply. Words held power, they always had. Sarah could envision a table covered in paper, all those stories sprawled beneath candlelight, creating a tapestry woven with shared experiences. Yet, a pit formed in her stomach at the thought of exposing her vulnerabilities on paper. Could she bear to see her own pain laid out for everyone to read? It felt daunting. The thrill of courage twisted dangerously close to fear's edge. What if the darkness of her past tainted the light they sought to create? Yes. Evelyn clapped her hands together, breaking Sarah's reverie. Each story can be a lantern guiding us through this darkness. We need to shine light on our experiences. It's our way of letting go. A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd. Sarah took a deep breath, her mind racing. She felt the collective will of the women around her, pushing her nearer to the edge of revelation. But then, a question slipped out before she could stop it. What if someone can't write? She asked, her voice trembling slightly as it floated into the stillness. What if this is too personal, too much? It's not about perfection, replied a woman with wise eyes, her voice a soothing brush against Sarah's anxious thoughts. It's about authenticity. Even if you just say a few words, it's your truth. It will be honored. The atmosphere shifted once more, the tension easing like a gentle tide. Sarah considered those words and felt the stirring of something deeply entrenched within her, a longing to be free, to belong not just with her words but with her very being. She imagined holding a small piece of paper, trembling in her hand, as she dared to confront the darkest corners of her heart. That fear and hesitation, they were universal. Sharing them could weave a net of strength, one that could catch them when they fell. We could even perform a small ceremony, suggested another voice, emboldened by the growing momentum. Something simple, lighting candles, reading our words aloud, creating a space of healing. Ideas blossomed, turning into a garden of possibilities. Sarah found herself smiling, her heart swelling with realization. The ritual wasn't just a proposition, it was a lifeline, a chance to step into the light together. I will share mine, Sarah finally said, her voice unwavering as it cut through the earlier uncertainty. I can start. It's time for me to take down the walls that have kept me from feeling whole. Applause erupted, filling the air with a swell of encouragement. Yet as Sarah looked around, she saw the glimmer of shared fear mirrored in many eyes. Some were ready, while others still hesitated in uncertainty. What about you? She asked, sweeping her gaze across the room. Are you all ready to share your truths? The response was hesitant, scattered murmurs weaving in and out of the larger chorus. Some were nodding, others still unsure. But as she felt the warmth slip away and uncertainty creep in again, a deeper thought coiled in her heart. What would happen if they took that leap together? Would they bond over their stories, or were they risking too much for the sake of healing? Just then, a new voice emerged, breaking the moment's tension. Can we help each other? A younger woman asked, her eyes reflecting both fear and hope. At that moment, Sarah knew they stood at the precipice of something monumental. All she needed to do was take a deep breath, hold on to the light, and trust what new stories and revelations might emerge as they leaned into vulnerability and embraced the power of connection. Would they find solace in shared fears or discover a strength they hadn't known existed? As Sarah gazed at the faces surrounding her, she felt the familiar rush of excitement tinged with apprehension. Together, they were about to embark on a journey that could change everything. The moment hung sweetly in the air, a collective breath drawn tight with possibility. Sarah sensed the weight of the room shifting, every woman feeling it in her own way. It was a moment of connection, a silent acknowledgement that they were all in this together, bound by something deeper than mere words. "I think we should pair up," Evelyn suggested, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "We can help each other find our voices. It might be easier to share when we have support." The mention of partnering brought a wave of nods, and Sarah smiled, relieved that she wouldn't have to venture into this alone. It felt right, each woman holding a piece of another's truth, leaning into shared fears. As small groups began forming, the atmosphere buzzed with whispers. Faces lit up as stories were exchanged, hands grasped, and tears wiped away. Sarah noticed the woman beside her, Maria, her dark hair framing a face marked by resilience. Maria was fidgeting with her hands, seemingly battling an inner storm. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked softly, sensing the turmoil brewing. "I want to share," Maria admitted, her voice almost breaking. "But what if it's too much? What if they don't understand?" Sarah felt her heart ache for her. "What if they do understand? You might surprise yourself." Taking a deep breath, Maria nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. "I'll try." It was a promise wrapped in vulnerability, and Sarah extended a hand, squeezing it gently. They began to exchange their stories, two lanterns flickering in the dark. With each word, each gasp of incredulity and nod of recognition, they built a bridge that connected them. Maria spoke of her struggles, of battling self-doubt, while Sarah found herself revealing more than intended, the moments of loneliness that shadowed her most radiant days. Time slipped by unnoticed. Laughter broke out sporadically, but it mingled with the tears, creating a powerful tapestry of emotions woven tightly together. "I had no idea this could feel so liberating," Sarah whispered during a quiet moment, reflecting on the shared space. Maria smiled through tears. "It's like the weight I've carried just lightened," she replied, glancing around the room that felt pulsing with healing energy. But as the candlelight flickered low, Sarah couldn't shake a growing gnaw of anxiety deep within her. What if they weren't ready to dive into the depths of the ritual? What if once they began to share those powerful stories, it would open wounds that couldn't be stitched shut? As these thoughts danced through her mind, Evelyn stepped up again, her voice steady and bright. "I think it's time we come together as one," she announced, rallying the groups. "Let us form a circle. Each of us can read a piece of what we've shared. It doesn't have to be everything, just a part that feels right." Fingers entwined, the circle took shape, and an electrifying current of anticipation surged through the room. The air felt thick with what was to come, a mixture of fear and excitement rising like a tide. "Who wants to go first?" Evelyn asked, scanning the circle with her warm gaze. A few women hesitated, nervous glances exchanged. Sarah's heart raced as her own story danced on the tip of her tongue. Did she have the courage to share? She opened her mouth, then closed it, weighing the gravity of what she'd say. Would she expose her deepest wound, or was it some part best left untouched? While her mind raced, the room waited, silence draping the sacred space. One woman's brave leap could ignite a wave, but the question remained, would they dive into vulnerability and risk it all together, or would their fears hold them back? With a pounding heart, Sarah glanced at Maria, who nodded encouragingly, urging her to step forward. The moment of truth was near, and the air buzzed with the dizzying thrill of anticipation. Would they summon the bravery to transform their pain into power? The first voice hesitated at the edge, ready to cross over into the unknown. Who among them would be willing to take that first leap into shared truth, and what would they discover waiting on the other side? As the silence stretched longer, a thick tension filled the air. Sarah's breath felt shallow, every heartbeat echoing loudly in her ears. It was a moment heavy with possibility and yet, fraught with a fear that threatened to snap the fragile thread binding them. Just when apprehension threatened to pull her under, a voice broke through the stillness. "I will." It was Rebecca, a woman with an easy laugh and a fierce gaze that held untold stories. She stepped forward as if summoned by the very spirit of the circle, illuminating the dim room with her courage. All eyes turned towards her, and in an instant, the atmosphere shifted. Rebecca's voice, shaky yet resolute, began to weave a tapestry of her experience. "I've been struggling with my identity after losing my job," she said, each word tumbling from her lips like so many jewels. "When I was let go, I felt like I had lost everything. My own worth. It's been hard." Gasps rippled through the group, echoes of shared pain resounding. This was a truth they all felt, the uncertainty lurking beneath the surface of so many lives. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, her heart swelling with empathy. Rebecca continued, her voice gaining strength. "But I learned something valuable during that time. I began to rediscover myself, to understand that I am more than my job." The room filled with applause and supportive murmurs, a wave of warmth washing over them all. It was like a dam had burst open as Rebecca's words sparked a flame in the others. "I want to share next," piped up Maria, standing taller than before, her earlier fear now morphing into determination as if Rebecca's courage had ignited a fire within her. Sarah beamed at her, feeling a rush of pride surge in her chest. As Maria began to share, each sentence was a step into the light, bravely unveiling her scars. "I have fought so hard with the idea of not being enough. I have constantly criticized myself, defined by what I couldn't achieve." The weight of her confession hung palpably in the air. Women nodded along, each one acknowledging their own silent battles. With each story shared, bonds deepened, and the walls they built around themselves began to crumble. Sarah's heart beat faster, knowing she was next. Each confession that echoed through the room lifted her courage, yet a twinge of doubt clawed at her. What would she say? What could possibly resonate with the experiences airborne within this sacred circle? But as more women spoke, each voice carrying whispers of fear, failure, hope, and resilience, Sarah felt a shift within. The collective stories wove a blanket of understanding, and she finally understood. Their trials were not solitary but echoes of a larger symphony, each woman a note contributing to the melody of grace and survival. When it was Sarah's turn, she felt the surge and swell of the moment wrap around her. "I had years of feeling unworthy alone," she began, her voice quivering with honesty. "I thought if I shared my fears, I'd be rejected, but tonight, I've learned something different. I realized that to be vulnerable, to open up, is not weakness but a brave act of strength." Every eye was on her, and she felt the gentle encouragement in their gazes. It was thrilling, terrifying, and liberating all at once. The fear of judgment dissolved among them like mist, and as she unfolded her story, she began to see glimmers of her own worth reflected in their tears and smiles. But just as she began to feel free, a shadow snaked into her thoughts. What would happen when the stories faded, when the lights dimmed? Would this bonding hold beyond these walls? Sarah's gaze swept over the circle once more, and she saw hope mingling with uncertainty. This journey was only beginning, and before her lay a question suspended in the air: how would they carry this newfound strength out into the world? The moment felt electric, crackling with potential, as they all awaited the next brave soul to share. And deep down, Sarah knew they were approaching the heart of something profound, something that could change their lives forever. Who among them would bridge the gap between shared vulnerability and the bonds that would carry them along their individual journeys outside this sacred space? The next voice trembled on the edge, ready to either fade or soar. The circle of women pulsed with energy, a beating heart of shared vulnerability as they leaned into the moment. Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her courage, feeling their warmth wrap around her like a protective cloak. The quiet strength that filled the room was tangible, a current that thrummed beneath the surface. I think I get it," Sarah began, her voice rising above the wavering silence. "This isn't just about sharing pain. It's about lifting each other up, isn't it? It's about acknowledging our stories and the power of our resilience. The nods that radiated from every corner of the circle filled her with certainty. With each woman who spoke, the room transformed into a sanctuary. A place where laughter and tears intertwined, where past struggles met new beginnings. As Sarah's eyes danced from one face to another, she saw mirrors of her own fear and hope reflected back at her. We've all carried burdens, she continued, her voice growing stronger. But here we are, together. That's what makes us powerful. This is not just a festival, it's a movement. Jake, seated quietly in the front row, watched with wide eyes, filled with pride. He could see his mother shining, finally stepping into her truth. Sarah felt the glow of that pride surging within her, igniting the spark she needed to delve deeper. I've learned that vulnerability breeds strength. The more we expose our hearts, the more room there is for healing. The crowd leaned in closer, hanging on every word. A new wave of energy swept over them, a recognition that they were creating something beyond just a celebration, they were writing their own history. Evelyn, standing at the edge of the circle, had transformed from the skeptical mother to an open-hearted participant. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, visibly reflecting the shift in their dynamic. Just as Sarah felt momentum carry her through, Evelyn stepped forward, cradling the weight of her own story. I want to add something, she said, her voice soft but steady. Sarah taught me tonight that silence isn't strength. I've carried my own fears for too long. The room held its breath as Evelyn continued, I believe that by burying my past, I might protect my family. But in truth, I managed to shield them from my love as well. I wish I had been brave enough to speak. The weight of truth hovered in the air, and Sarah felt her heart swell with the acknowledgement and understanding that had been absent for years. We've all been hiding, Sarah murmured, glancing around the circle. But now we can choose to show up differently. Together. Supportive murmurs erupted like gentle waves, cascading through the group as women began sharing not just stories of their struggles, but their triumphs, too. Each confession became a stepping stone paving the way toward connection. As one voice whispered hope, another echoed gratitude, and laughter bloomed through the exchange. With every unraveling tale, the bonds tightened, illuminating a path towards deeper understanding. Let us create something lasting, suggested Maria amid the rising tides of enthusiasm. What if we made a commitment to check in on one another, share our journeys beyond tonight? The idea sparked like wildfire. Suddenly, every woman began discussing the potential of monthly gatherings, a support system constructed from shared emotions and honesty. Sarah felt warmth pool inside her chest. Was this what it meant to build a community? With each plan voiced, the air crackled with electricity, the realization that they had stepped beyond fear into a realm of hope and transformation. They envisioned a network of voices, a circle that wouldn't break. Yes. Sarah cheered, let us pledge to share our stories and support one another. Let us lift each other higher, together. Applause engulfed the room, a chorus of empowerment culminating into a joyous symphony. As the evening grew dim, candles flickering softly like thousands of stars scattered across the sky, the circle began to dissolve. Yet the embers of connection glowed ever bright in their hearts, with everyone now wrapping up the evening. Sarah felt the sweet thrum of determination surge within her. She looked around at the women whose stories had intertwined with hers, their laughter mingling with hope. Everyone was transformed. Sarah was no longer a ghost in her own story, she was the heroine of her journey. Together, she thought, we can reshape our community. And with that powerful vision sparkling in her heart, she knew this was just the beginning. Change was in the air. The festival would not only celebrate their stories, but also usher in a wave of healing and unity. Watching Jake break into a genuine grin, Sarah took her son's hand, heart full. This time, she wouldn't let fear silence her. Together, they would build a tomorrow filled with courage, love, and authentic connections. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. And together, their voices would ring loud and clear. Don't just stand by and watch, take action. You need to subscribe now, this is the moment to show your support for these incredible stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this transformation going. Your voice matters. Comment your reactions, your feelings about this journey we've all shared. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear these powerful narratives and find their inspiration. Join our movement.